The Cuban government is talking with us, and they're in a big deal of trouble, as you know. They have no money, they have no anything right now, but they're talking with us, and maybe we'll have a friendly takeover of Cuba.
A remark that could reshape decades of hostility, a region already on edge, and now the suggestion of a friendly takeover. US President Donald Trump has raised the prospect of the United States assuming control of Cuba, as relations between Washington and Havana deteriorate sharply following the capture of Venezuelan leader Nicolás Maduro. Speaking to reporters on February 27th as he departed the White House for a campaign event in Texas, Trump claimed the Cuban government was in contact with Washington.
The Cuban government is talking with us, and they're in a big deal of trouble, as you know. They have no money, they have no anything right now, but they're talking with us, and maybe we'll have a friendly takeover of Cuba. We could very well end up having a friendly takeover of Cuba.
What about the coast, sir?
After many, many years, we've had a lot of years of dealing with Cuba. I've been hearing about Cuba since I'm a little boy, but they're in big trouble, and we could very well, something good, I think very positive for the people that were expelled or worse from Cuba that live here. You know, we have people living here that want to go back to Cuba, and they're very happy with what's going on.
Axios reported this month that Rubio had been holding secret talks with the grandson of Cuba's former leader. US officials close to Rubio met with the grandson again on the sidelines of this week's Regional Caribbean Community Conference in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Well, Cuba's doing very badly. They're failing. Cuba right now is, to put it mildly, a failing nation. And I've been hearing about Cuba. I said before, since I'm a little boy, I've been hearing about Cuba, and everybody wanted to change. And I can see that happening. Marco Rubio is dealing on it, and at a very high level. And, you know, they have no money, they have no oil, they have no food. And it's really right now a nation in deep trouble, and they want our help.
Although the president provided no specific details, reports indicate that US officials have held discussions with Raúl Guillermo Rodriguez Castro, the grandson of former Cuban President Raúl Castro, during the recent Caribbean Community Summit. The talks were reportedly linked to possible negotiations on opening up the island. The Cuban government has said it is not in any high-level talks with the United States, but also has not outright denied press reports. Trump's comments come at a moment of intense strain between the two countries. Relations have plunged to one of their lowest points in more than 6 decades, after the United States captured Venezuela's Nicolás Maduro in January. Prior to the operation in Caracas, US officials secured cooperation from Maduro's deputy, Delcy Rodriguez, now serving as Venezuela's acting president, who has pledged to open Venezuela's oil reserves to foreign companies. Subsequently, Venezuela halted oil exports to Cuba, cutting off a lifeline the island had relied upon for over 25 years. The United States has since imposed what has been described as an oil blockade on Cuba, compounding an already severe economic crisis. Trump's language has prompted concern among some observers. The island's history includes decades of US economic dominance prior to Fidel Castro's 1959 revolution, a legacy that still shapes political sensitivities. In Miami, where a large Cuban exile community has long opposed the island's communist government, reactions could prove complex. Some analysts suggest the White House is carefully managing diaspora opinion, particularly as Secretary of State Marco Rubio is reportedly handling discussions at a senior level. The developments follow a separate incident in which heavily armed exiles from Florida attempted to land on Cuba's north coast, resulting in a deadly gunfight at sea. 4 were killed and several injured. Rubio denied any US government involvement. Cuban border guards shot dead 4 people and wounded 6 others aboard a Florida-registered speedboat that entered the island's territorial waters in an incident that sharply escalated tensions between Havana and Washington. Cuba's Interior Ministry on February 25th said that the vessel with registration number FL7726SH, a 1981 24-foot powerboat, was detected near Cayo Falcones on the country's northern coast, roughly 200 kilometers east of Havana. When a Cuban patrol boat approached the speedboat and requested identification, the crew opened fire, wounding the Cuban commander. Border guards returned fire.
As a consequence of the confrontation, as of the time of this report, 4 aggressors on the foreign vessel were killed and 6 were injured. The injured individuals were evacuated and received medical assistance. Investigations by the competent authorities continue in order to fully clarify the events.
The Cuban ministry said the passengers were anti-government Cuban exiles who had sailed from Florida dressed in camouflage and armed with assault rifles, handguns, homemade explosives, and ballistic vests. Among the 6 detained, 2 were already wanted in Cuba on suspicion of planning attacks against the government. A 7th suspect, Daniel Hernandez Santos, was arrested inside Cuba, where authorities say he had traveled to receive the group. Only one of the 4 dead has been identified so far as Michel Ortega Casanova. The remaining 3 had not been named at the time of this report. All 4 were born in Cuba, but live in the US. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who was in St. Kitts and Nevis meeting Caribbean leaders when the incident broke, confirmed the boat carried no US government personnel and was not a US operation. But he was careful to distance Washington from Havana's account.
So this morning, we were made aware by Cuban authorities of an incident off the coast of Cuba. We immediately began to look into it. As it stands now, the Department of Homeland Security, the Coast Guard, others are involved. The majority of the information we still possess is what Cuban authorities are providing, both the public and the U.S. government. I'm not going to speculate. I'm not going to opine on what I don't yet know. But we're going to find out exactly what happened here, and then we'll respond accordingly.
Meanwhile, US Vice President J.D. Vance said the White House was monitoring the situation but acknowledged the administration was still piecing together what happened. Florida lawmakers were less measured. Congressman Carlos Gimenez called it a massacre and demanded the removal of Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel, while Attorney General James Uthmeier said he had directed state prosecutors to open an investigation alongside federal partners, declaring the Cuban government could not be trusted. The incident arrives as Cuba grinds through a severe fuel and food crisis, worsened by the Trump administration's blockade on oil shipments to the island, including those from Venezuela, whose President Nicolás Maduro was captured by American forces in Caracas on January 3rd, stripping Havana of a critical regional ally.